Welcome to the Social Workers radio talk show on WCDB Albany 90.9 FM with co-host Dr. Eric Hardiman and Alyssa Lotmore. Here at the Social Workers, we address issues important to our communities with social work students, alumni, and community partners as our guests.
As part of the University at Albany School of Social Welfare, we hope to take social work beyond the classroom and agency settings and directly to the public, because the public is the client. Catch us on air, online, and anytime.
Welcome back. This is WCDB Albany. My name is Eric Hardiman, and I'm here on the Social Workers with my regular co-host, Alyssa Lotmore. Welcome back, Alyssa.
Hey, Eric. Great to be here, as always.
It is always great to be here. If you're just tuning in for the first time, this is a radio show, live radio talk show called The Social Workers. We also produce it in podcast format. We've been doing The Social Workers for a long time, right, Alyssa? How long has it been?
Was this our 11th year or 12th year? It's been a while. I know we celebrated our 10-year. I can't remember how long ago.
I think it might have been we'll have to check the calendar, but I think it might have been close to 12 years, maybe 11 or 12 years. We're in that range.
Yes.
But we, on this show, we like to talk to folks from the community, folks from the UAlbany community, folks from the local community, folks that are involved in social work of one kind or another, or just people that have topics to talk about that are, that have some relevance and interest to social work as a profession and as a practice.
Well, we try to be really involved in the community and get that message out there. And one of the ways that we're involved with the community, both as faculty and staff and our students, is through that service, through community service, through volunteering on boards for nonprofits, just for being involved. And community service is huge on the UAlbany campus. We have a whole program that is the Community and Public Service Program, where students can actually earn credit to do community service and gain that experience. Go ahead, Eric.
It's really amazing. I mean, the University at Albany is very committed to community engagement at large. And I think this program that you're talking about, the Community and Public Service Program, is one that we're going to dig into in this episode. But it's one that's a really great example of a concrete way that students get some hands-on experience where they're in the community. And, we'll let Sheri talk about it much better than we can. But we have with us a special guest today, who's Sheri Stevens, who is the director of the University at Albany's Community and Public Service Program, which is housed in the School of Social Welfare, where Alyssa and I are both housed too. So Sheri, welcome to the Social Workers.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Sheri, I'm so glad to have you on to talk about this. I wouldn't be a social worker if it wasn't for this program. I was originally an education major, and I signed up the freshman year spring semester and did a volunteer work, or community service in a school setting, a kindergarten classroom in the Albany Public Schools. And I was like, oh my, I don't think this is for me. And I met the social worker there, and I liked how she was working one-on-one. And I said, oh, this is for me. So this program that you're the director of actually got me into social work and helped me from getting a whole degree in education, realizing that wasn't for me. So thank you, Sheri.
My pleasure. And in fact, that's quite common. We tell students, it can rule in or rule out, and that's fine. I've had so many students who their whole lives, their family thought they were going to be a doctor. They thought they wanted to be a doctor, and they went to volunteer in a hospital, and they're like, oh my goodness, this is not for me. And that's great. Like, you want to have that exploration to find what's your fit and where do you belong.
Yeah. So let's back up for listeners for a minute. So you've been with the University at Albany for since 2009, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about we'll get to the CPSP, the Community and Public Service Program, in a minute. You can tell us all about that and what that is for our listeners. But maybe tell us a little bit about yourself as how did you find social work? What was your journey into social work?
Okay, well, so I graduated from college way back in the 80s with a degree in Spanish, because that was the easiest major to have since I studied in Madrid, and it all fell together nicely. Before that, I was criminal justice, what else was I don't even remember, but I decided I was going to teach high school Spanish, and I started a summer program to get a master's in education, and I needed a summer job. And a friend of mine worked at an agency operated boarding house, which was kind of like a group home for kids in Schenectady, and said, why don't you come here? And it was when Whitney Houston's song, I Believe That Children Are the Future, was popular. And that was it. I stayed there for 8 years and never looked back. After that, I moved on to another organization, Parsons Child and Family Center, now Northern Rivers, where I spent the next 12 years of my career working with adolescents with psychiatric diagnoses who had to be in a group living situation because it wasn't safe for them to be in the community. While I was doing that, I decided to seek a master's in social work only because I needed it in order to supervise the whole facility. And I really was quite full of myself and thought I knew everything there was to know, and that there was no way it was going to teach me anything, but I decided to do it anyway. And lo and behold, I actually did learn a lot. And I really enjoyed the process. While I was doing that, I was lucky enough to work in the community and public service program and realized what an impact we could have on the community in a different way. You know, my life was 20 years of crisis response, you know, working through things, you know, super chaotic, and coming here and having this amazing opportunity to help students find opportunities to volunteer in the community with organizations that I'd seen through my other roles as really, you know, doing important work for our community was just so beneficial. And now I think I have the best job at our entire university.
So tell us and our listeners, so what, you know, when you give your elevator pitch for what the community and public service program is, can you describe the program and its full scope to folks?
Yeah, so we offer students the opportunity to earn college credit for service to the community. They can volunteer with any public or nonprofit organization for 1, 2, or 3 credits with a commitment of 35, 60, or 100 hours. While they're doing their service, they do a series of reflective activities on our online software program. And once they've done all their hours, completed all their reflective work, they receive 1, 2, or 3 pass-fail credits. And then we also have an upper level class where it's actually graded A through E that has more academic rigor, you know, a bit more writing.
And what's the history of this program? You know, how long does it go back at UAlbany?
Well, this is what I love to talk about this. Our program started in 1970, and a lot of us are too young to remember how chaotic that was, but it was a crazy time on university campuses. Students were very distant from the community. The community looked at students as like lazy, kind of drug smoking, weird clothes wearing hippies that didn't care about the world. Students were really frustrated for a number of reasons. It was during the height of the Vietnam War. It was the invasion into Cambodia, the shootings at Kent State. They felt like the education they were getting wasn't relevant to address the problems in the world around them. And so, you know, some folks are like, oh yeah, that was the 70s. But here at UAlbany, it was scary. I mean, there were riots, classroom windows were broken. I mean, these were dangerous times. Students were walking out of classrooms. Professors didn't want to come into classrooms. And UAlbany was right at the cusp of having an intervention. Princeton was the first school to intervene, and they gave their students 2 weeks off, canceled classes, and said, go work for the political candidate of your choice for 2 weeks during the 1970 elections. UAlbany was right behind them, the second school in the nation, to say, go and work for the political candidate of your choice over the course of the semester, and we'll give you credit for it. And you can work at some other community organization if you want. And that first semester, they had 220 students. And after that, the following spring, they had 1,000 students who wanted to do this. And
so the community service option.
Yeah, to volunteer in the community for credit, to feel like they could somehow help to fix some of the problems that were going on in the world and the things they were seeing in our own communities and worldwide. It was kind of crazy and chaotic, and it was actually Charles O'Reilly, who was the vice president at the university at the time, who made this process happen. And it started out in what we call ITLAL Center for Innovation and lasted there for a year, but students could only get credit by doing independent studies with the College of Arts and Sciences or the College of Education, but through this program. And it was quite tenuous because, as you can imagine, faculty felt all sorts of different ways about this program. Some were really supportive. Some thought it was not meaty enough and was just giving away credits. There was a lot of contention. And luckily, Charles O'Reilly was from the School of Social Welfare and went back to the school a year later as the dean and brought this program with him so that it would be firmly established there with its own courses and have the support of the School of Social Welfare, which was already so deeply embedded in our community with their field experiences for MSW students. And we've been going strong ever since. Before COVID, I had about 1,400 students every year participating in this program. As you can imagine, during COVID, it went down. We only had, say, 200 students during the height of things, but they were still doing amazing things like walking dogs for elderly neighbors, picking up prescriptions for them, volunteering to bring prescriptions all over the community or drop off food to people. I mean, they were amazing.
And were there virtual options during that time, or was it all in person?
Well, no, that's actually when we started developing virtual options. We never had virtual before. So that could be one benefit from COVID, that we actually had them, and we continue to this day. We have, a crisis support line where students can volunteer as listeners in a texting way for non-critical, for folks who are experiencing some discomfort, but not at a crisis level. They volunteer for the Smithsonian Zooniverse project, where they're on all sorts of different projects helping to categorize data. They have we have one, Be My Eyes, where students read books for children, another one where they evaluate books, all sorts of different things.
Now, it's housed in the school social welfare, and as many people know, social work students have a mandatory internship in a nonprofit where they're doing micro or macro work, and it's more clinical or that generalist approach. But students in your program can be from any major. A majority of them, or actually all of them, are undergraduate students. And what is the scope? I mean, you gave some examples right now of things that students do, but what is sort of if a student was interested, or if somebody's like, I want to know more about this program, what are some of the types of work that these students are doing in the community? I mean, there's a range from legal, hospital, schools. I mean, you name it. These students can volunteer there or have their community service there.
They can literally do anything. I'm proud to say that we have never found a student that we couldn't help them find a place to volunteer. I think one of the biggest successes of our program is it's totally student generated. They have to find their organization, they have to get the approval, they have to do the hours, and then they get the credit. We help them by having an interview and kind of asking what they like, what they're interested in, what their availability is, and we make suggestions, but it's on them to find it. So I think they take a lot more responsibility in the positive outcome, but it's super interesting. Like, our success rate is like 99.99999. Like, they love what they do. And even sometimes, service isn't always glorious, right? Like, sometimes you're cleaning a kitchen or you're doing, clerical work because the agency has to function. And I think what our students understand is we set out to build the capacity of the organizations we serve. And it's about helping them do better in the community, whether it's doing more work, doing better work. That's what our students do. And that's the mindset they go in with. They could do something from traditional sites are working at after school programs, helping support the work of the wonderful organizations we have working with Arcata 6 Albany student, K through 6 Albany City students. We also have a bunch of students working in all the different healthcare facilities in our community, including the 3 hospitals. We have students who want to have an office-like experience. So although I may think, wow, that sounds a little boring, they love being in a professional position, answering the phone, helping to do filing, organize systems and stuff. It really depends. I have students on a more independent basis who are working in a county jail where they're actually doing inmate services and helping folks, whether it's discharge planning or keeping connected to their family. So literally the sky's the limit. We have historically had a lot of students working in government because Albany is our state capital. Yeah. They do the assembly internship. It can be any public or nonprofit. And they also can do it in their home community. If they're home for a semester, they do it during the summer. We also work with international education for them to be able to do it globally if they want to. We're all about, give the service where your heart takes you.
I mean, it seems like this whole concept is a really unique one in the sense that it extends the learning away from the campus, away from the classroom into the real world. And I wonder what do you hear from people in the community about this program? Do they start to see the university and its student body differently?
Well, I think it really helps to counteract a lot of the negative feelings people have about university students and how they act. You know, we were all young ones, we get it. But in a lot of our neighborhoods, especially, like UAlbany students are a huge part of the fabric of life. Say, for example, Mississippi Day, which was a festival before COVID that served, I think our last one, we served 1,235 meals to community members, free meals to celebrate the Southern roots of our community, but especially to, you know, remember the journey of the folks who migrated to the North for their own safety and the safety of their families. And that event wouldn't have happened without the 120 UAlbany students down there proudly serving and, you know, helping in any way they can. I think it really does help the organization and the community itself, the people, see UAlbany as caring about the community. And our students are amazing in the things they do.
And how do students find out about it? What's the word on the street amongst students? You know, we're in the business of teaching and being in the classroom and being administrators and all that good stuff. But how do students find out about it, and what do they think of this program?
Well, it's funny. Before COVID, again, we have the before COVID and after COVID. It was mostly word of mouth. Like, since when you figure if I had 1,400 students doing it, that's 10% of the student body. So like every student knew what the RSSWs were, which is funny that that's what they call it. But it was just automatic. At what point were you going to do it in your college career? And some students did all three or fall classes, all 4 classes. Sometimes it was just a one-off depending on where they were. You know, since COVID, we've had to do more advertising, but it's interesting over the years, like even when I first started, there was still some kind of negative pushback against our program, that it was fluffy and that it was a way for students to get easy credit. And over the years, that's really changed. And we work with a lot of professors to help create service learning opportunities, to give credit for service learning opportunities for students in their classes. Advisors are constantly recommending our class to students as a way to go out and explore a career, or from a social justice perspective, for our Black and Brown students, this is a way to get a great recommendation to make them more competitive for an internship. You know, when they don't, especially our first gen students, don't have that fabric in their history or their family connections to be able to score those internships. So this really helps level the playing field and gives them confidence.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, even for me, I still stay in contact with the supervisors that I had during the community and public service program when I was in the schools. But it's a great way to network. So many times students are in the classroom and they don't have that real life experience. They don't know what it's like to go out and show up every day in a professional setting, to be able to interact with colleagues at that more professional level and to sort of build their resume. And this is a great way that students can do this beginning freshman year, gaining that experience year after year. So by the time they do graduate or are looking for a higher level internship their junior or senior year, it's giving them something to put down, people to write letters of recommendation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, I know there's a lot of reflection after students do this project. And like you said, they can do many different settings, some things that they love and they say, this is what I want to do. Some things that they're like, oh my, I need to change my major. This is not what I want to do. But what is some of the reflections? I know like I said, they do a reflection assignment. What is some of the stuff that they say? Do they feel like they had this transformational experience, or what is it like?
Well, it's funny. So students take our class for a bunch of reasons. Sometimes they do it just because they want to give back. Sometimes it's an elective in their major. Sometimes they do want to balance hands-on experience with a more academic, science-heavy experience. A lot of times it's a senior who's taken everything they wanted to take and they realize they have 3 more credits and they want to do something interesting. They want to try something. So they come for a variety of reasons. And it's the ones that I'm going to say not resentful, but they need 3 credits to graduate. They didn't realize it. Oh my God, we're the Hail Mary for the school, right? They come to us. And oftentimes they're the ones that have the most life-changing, like aha moments, whether it's, for the first time really, seeing a neighborhood and seeing the strengths of communities that are under-resourced. And, I think because we're so programmed to look at the things that are lacking in those communities and how scary they can be and how awful. And I think when our students have the opportunity to get down there and to meet the amazing community members we have that are working to make their communities beautiful, healthy, and robust places, I think that's been really overwhelming for our students, and they love to be a part of that. I think, the realization that they made a difference in someone's life, just like for any of us, is incredibly powerful. And that's what we see over and over again. It's the human connections they made, whether it's just as an intern at the hospital, kind of floating around the emergency room, making sure people are comfortable, or it's at an after school program, sitting there, helping a child learn to read. I mean, it's that connection, and a lot of times a connection to a person who's not like them, and to see how much they have in common and how, when humanity comes together, beautiful things happen.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like expanding their worldview alone is an important piece here. Yeah, it's so exciting. So if you've just tuned in, we're talking with Sheri Stevens, who is the director of the UAlbany Community and Public Service Program, CPSP, commonly called, which is a program which places students in all kinds of community sites to get college credit for undergraduate credit for work that they do in community settings, right? So can you just for my own clarification, but also hopefully for our listeners, distinguish for us a little bit the difference between the terms internship, service learning, and maybe volunteer? Like what are the
Sure.
what's the role that the students actually play?
Okay, so an internship is generally it's a formal experience that's attached to a major. There's an internship class with it where they're learning specific skills. It has to do with their industry or their area.
Okay.
Then there's service learning, and the specific term is that's a professor who wants his students to have an interactive experience in the community around whatever they're studying. So
Okay.
say, for example, in geography and planning, they're doing kind of urban renewal or urban planning, and they'll work with a local organization to develop a plan for a request to rehab steps that go up to an architectural, I don't know.
Oh, you picked a challenging example.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many different things. Or it could be a professor in engineering, computer science, who's working on a new app to help link community members to services in the community. So the students will go out and run forums and groups to see how the community, what they need and what they want and how this app works. There are other ones that they'll do history projects and help an organization who has a treasure trove of documents and history, and they'll help organize that. I mean, it could be anything, but it's one professor, their course, and an experience in the community for their students.
I see.
We fall under that general umbrella of service learning, but community service for credit is different. It's literally, we trust the students to take what they've learned here in the community, here at UAlbany, the knowledge they came with, and to put that together and use it in the community in a meaningful way.
Okay.
And it works, but why did it work? We're not really sure. And it's like a black box of amazingness. Like, students love what they do. And it's not just because it's easy. Like, this commitment, if you do a 100-hour commitment, by the time you get up and going, you're a couple weeks in the semester. So you're doing between 10 and 12 hours a week that you have to dedicate to this community service site, in addition to all your responsibilities academically, your social responsibilities. Probably, so many of our students come from modest backgrounds. You have a part-time job somewhere, if not even more, and you have to do these hours. So it can be really stressful for students, but it's worth it. And they're just so satisfied when they do it.
So this is not just an easy way out for students. This really is a challenging learning experience that that gives them something different.
Absolutely.
And also, as I was a student who did a former student who did this program, but I also ended up being a supervisor when I was working as a school social worker. And I took, in addition to social work interns, I took CPSP students, and it was challenging for them. Sometimes they're like, I just have to come and process with you for a minute. It was not just, having to be there on time, having, students who relied on them, the teachers that relied on them in the classroom, but they also were interacting with, I hate the term, but inner city youth, where there was a lot of heavier, topics that students would talk to them about, because they were like this mentor or person in the class that the students built a relationship with, a connection. And sometimes, even though they weren't the social work majors, they still needed to like debrief on some of the stuff that was going on.
Absolutely.
So it definitely wasn't, that was just my type of setting in a school setting, but it definitely wasn't just a fluff. Oh, this is an easy thing to do 12 hours a week. It was something that it was like, they're learning, they're stepping out of their comfort zones. They need to be there on time and have responsibilities and organization. And it was definitely something that I think that they probably got more than they expected from
right.
the
And
site.
as you said, it's not fluffy. Like, recently, unfortunately, we had 2 shootings in the community. One young man was killed, but happened to be related to kids that we had students working with, and to have to process that grief with them and to see how it affected their lives. And even to see one of them who's on a trajectory to actually be successful in high school and pass, and how he totally shut down when this happened. That's heavy for our students. Or I had a student who was, scarily moving someone as a transporter in the hospital, and the person died while they were transporting them. To no fault of theirs, it was just a fluke thing. But students are working through some pretty heavy stuff sometimes, or working with a family, and you're working with them in a school setting, but you're hearing that they're getting evicted from their house because they can't afford their rent. They're ending up in a shelter, and just to see that transformation and to hear about that process, for some of our students, that's their history, and they understand, and they're giving back because so much was given to them. But for some of our other students, it's a whole different reality.
And I want to reiterate that these are not all social work students. This is open to students in every single major. So it's not like, oh, students can process in their class, because they're learning about trauma in their social work classes. I know it is tied into the social work minor, and it will be tied into the social justice major when that comes along, that's housed under the school social welfare. But a lot of these students, you could have a biology background, biology major, or, IT, and going into these settings in stepping out of your comfort zone. And thankfully, with your social work background, there's people in the office that can help students to process. And I think that's why it's so important to have like that social worker in a position like yours as director, because it allows students are dealing with heavy things in the community, and having someone who's familiar and knows how to address those issues and respond is critical for the student's own well-being and growth.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. We have, because we have so many students, we rely on a network. We train students to give peer feedback on reflections, because the reason we do that is because there's a lot of literature that shows that reflecting after service makes the experience deeper for you and more meaningful.
Yeah.
And what we realized is we would give feedback sometimes, like it was particularly interesting or particularly hard, but students responded so well to the feedback, and they loved it so much that we made a commitment to give feedback on every single thing they write. So we have peer feedback writers, and they're trained to give anything amazing and outstanding to myself or the assistant director, Jenny, or anything that's remotely sad, painful, discomforting, whatever. They forward those to us, and then we reach out to the students and, touch base with them to make sure they're okay.
So for our faculty that have a classroom of 25 at our grading papers, and you had 1,400 students, I give you a big clap and thumbs up for giving feedback to all of those and organizing a system where there's peer feedback and addressing those issues, because that is no easy feat. And it helps and benefits to students and kudos to you, Sheri.
Sheri, I was just going to, along those lines, because I think that's a really good point, Alyssa, that having this many students, this many learning opportunities in the community, Sheri, this has got to be really an incredible challenge organizationally, just to keep track of, to monitor, to know, you know, to build those relationships with organizations and opportunities and folks in the community means that I would imagine that you have to be everywhere in a sense. You have to know what the, you know what those opportunities are in the community, know what's a valid opportunity for a student, what's maybe not as meaningful. And then you also have to get to know the students too and what their needs are. What are the biggest challenges for you in running this program?
Biggest challenges. I mean, it's so hard to say because I have a wonderful job and I love what I do. Could I do
She
it
really
better?
does. She really does. Like every time I see her, she has a smile on her face.
Don't
No
tell
matter what.
everyone, like in this entire university, and this is the honest truth, there's not one job that I think is better than mine. Like, I'm just so lucky to be able to work with organizations that are doing such amazing work in the community, help them build their capacity to do even better, and provide students with this meaningful experience. I mean, it's just like, you know, full of love and good energy all over the place. So I'm so lucky. I think we could do it better if we had more people, you know, more, just more staff to be able to meet more with our organizations, to really find out what their needs are, to do a better job offering those to students, because it's basically my assistant director and I, and then our student staff who try to remember where to recommend students to based on what they're saying they're interested in. And it just, you know, we could do better, but I think we do great. We have a fair twice a year. Every semester, we have a community service chair where we invite our community partners to come and table here at the university so they can talk to students about what they do and, you know, get a feel for, and students can get a feel for the organization. That's always super successful. We usually have about 70 organizations that come. And we have our regular partners. Like I have in my heart, they're like our super special partners. And they're the ones generally that are serving children. Like if you walk in the office and you don't know what you want to do, I'm going to use my Jedi mind force to get you excited about working with kids, because we know that even though Albany, we're a small city, we have big city problems when it comes to graduation rates in our school district. We know that, you know, especially since COVID with slide and stuff, our kids are not reading at grade level. We know that at third grade, they don't read, they don't learn, because after third grade, you read to learn, right? So there are so many reasons and ways for us to get involved in the community and really have our students. And if our kids in Albany can look at our UAlbany students and say, I either want to be you someday or I want to marry you someday, like that's a cool role model, right? And for our students, then they become these rock stars to kids. Like when you walk in the door and these kids are so happy to see you, like that's an amazing experience. So, but again, you know, if we had more support, we could get more opportunities and even have a more specific, because we do get some really cool specific opportunities that we could recruit specifically talented kids. Like somebody needs to build a database. Like we can't just throw any student at them because it's not fair to the student, it's not fair to the organization. It takes a lot to supervise volunteers. So we want to make sure that it's a meaningful relationship for both. But we have so many students here with that level of expertise, but we don't have the time or resources to investigate that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So I think that's my biggest frustration, but.
And Sheri, I just want to jump in because I know we're running out of time here, but I know sometimes, you know, because I serve on a few boards in the community and sometimes we're like, we need volunteers. How do we get them? For people who are listening, who are maybe a part of a nonprofit organization or a public organization that want to be a supervisor or would love to have an intern, or I shouldn't say intern, a community service volunteer. What are ways that they can reach out to you or get on a list of, like, as an agency that they are interested? What are the steps that a community partner would take if they want to actually be in that role?
Reach out to us by email. We have a website. It's just www.albany.edu/CPSP. Our contact information is on there. They can call the Office of Public Engagement and they'd be routed to us. Yeah, stop me in the street, talk to anybody. My cell phone number is out there. Like, we want you. And if you're specifically looking for volunteers, we will send students your way. Like, our students can volunteer anywhere they want to volunteer. And that is the golden rule. It's up to them. But when we have organizations that are actively recruiting, we definitely highlight those for students.
Yeah.
So,
And since we usually have social workers who are listening, unlike a social work internship, the supervisor does not need to have a social work background or certain criteria that other types of, the internships have. This is a community service program for our students. And, we're pretty much all volunteer, or all employees can be a supervisor to these students.
they have to just be willing to support them, to meet with them on a regular basis and give them feedback on their performance. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, this is just so exciting talking to Sheri Stevens about the CPSP, the Community Public Service Program. It just seems like such an amazing program and such a vibrant example of how UAlbany is connected in the community, making a difference in the community, but at the same time, fulfilling our mission of teaching students and giving them learning opportunities. And it seems like a win-win all around. And it is really one of those hidden gems, although maybe not hidden, but it's one of those gems that, on campus and extending into the community that I think is just so valuable about the University of Albany. So thanks for all that you've done on behalf of our students.
Oh, no,
And we are
you
so
can-
lucky to have you as part of the School of Social Welfare. But for those also looking for contact information, Sheri is part of the School of Social Welfare on our faculty and staff page on the School of Social Welfare's website.
Thank you both. This has been great.
And it's always a great opportunity for students who come through the CPSP program and have these learning experience in the community, and then find out about social work and may want to pursue a graduate degree in social work. And there's, we're right here for them and ready to help them through that journey should they want to become social workers, and we hope they do.
Oh, absolutely. We're always recruiting. When students tell us their major, we're like, oh, it really sounds like your social welfare and not this other major, because, and then we explain why.
Yeah.
And a lot of students, they never thought about it, because especially if you're from an urban area, when you think social worker, you think CPS worker coming to take your kids. It's just a fact. So we really have to help them understand the breadth and depth of our profession and what they can do with it. And some of the folks who are doing amazing things. So
Very well
we do
said.
recruit, and every organization that we partner with, every new one, we ask, do you have MSW on staff? Because we need MSW placements for our MSW students. So we try to be team players.
Thank
So this
you
has
so
been
much,
great.
Sheri.
You've been listening to the social workers here on WCDB Albany. And I'm Eric, and I've been here with Alyssa, and we've been talking with Sheri Stevens. It's been a great conversation, Sheri. Thanks for being our guest, and we hope you'll come back and some point down the road and tell us about, changes. Tell us what the next step is going to be for CPSP and kind of where you take it from here. So we'd love to follow up in the future and get you back.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Alyssa, any parting words?
No, just stay tuned for more new episodes. We have some new faculty that will be joining the School of Social Welfare and some other exciting things that are going to be up and coming in the upcoming months. So stay tuned for some new episodes.
We have 2 new faculty members joining us, both from California, and one who will be an expert in artificial intelligence and social work, and really exciting. And we hope to get them on the show soon to talk about the breadth of their expertise and what they bring to our faculty and students. So it's going to be an exciting year on the social workers, and lots of change ahead. Thanks for listening to WCDB Albany, the Social Workers.